while blind. I should have thrown a 2.0 because if you attended my talk at DerbyCon, I gave a very similar talk, but now that I've given a little bit more time, I'll be kind of showing those examples that I talked about and some of the other things, and talking a little bit more about community and other additional ways you can help out, just due to feedback through the community and things we've talked about. So who am I? I'm the blind hacker. A lot of people know me as that. Let's see. Again, I don't consider myself really disabled, just differently able. I function pretty much 99% even with low vision. So there's that. So again, being differently able, I feel is the better way to say some of that today. I still have a disability. I'm not discounting that, but ultimately I can do a lot because I'm only partially blind as opposed to fully blind. And I think that's a big difference to state. Still a goonie, a gamer, a nerd, and a geek. Yes, I still game even with the visual impairment. You'll begin to see as I talk about some of these slides. I did get rid of some of the slides that showed some of the examples ultimately, but there's that. Let's see. So still I hear Discord. Let me mute that real quick because that's going to go bananas. And mute server. Sorry. Let's see. Still a gamer. If you ever want to see that, I sometimes stream video games because I am a streamer, but not often, honestly. Still an educator and a mentor. I'm huge into the education, specifically for cyber, for those that are here for free. I do a lot of stuff for free. I very, very seldomly often ever put out a paid course unless it's a certification-based course, but then it's just to cover the cost really of certifications, things like that. So, my day job, I'm a hacker, pen tester, and occasionally do some red teaming when orgs allow it. Current title actually is no longer Director of Offensive Security. One thing I've forgotten, Head of Offensive Security and Development. So I scooched the development environment under my IT security budget in my company because we are able to do a lot more with the developers than just having them kind of sit there, which has been a fantastic add because we've been able to complete a ton of work. Let's see, community outreach, big into that. Again, I reach out to a lot of people. I'm active on Twitter, active on social media, just to, let people know that that I do the rest of these things. And then I'm a big ally advocate. Now, ally with A11Y means accessibility. So again, that's doing things like screen reader, screen zoom, people with disabilities. So I try to reach out and help as many of those folks that I can. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, tagging me on Twitter, things like that. So always put the information. So what I do, again, really consider myself at a baseline. I don't think hacker is a dirty word anymore. I deal with my primary best spots to catch me in and that I'm most knowledgeable in is network systems. I didn't add some of you've seen, I've talked about mobile stuff recently, but I didn't add it because I don't think I'm proficient there yet, but I'm getting there. Again, I love calling myself a modder as well. I love to grab either people's codes. I mod video games still anytime that I see it. I've done accessibility mods for certain older video games that the DRM and things aren't on there. I love modding people's scripts, editing scripts, and just kind of, I'm not great at starting things off, but I'm great at making them suit my needs. I don't ever want to say better, but suit my needs, I love to mod hardware and single board computers, Raspberry Pis, things like that. Not as much into that as I used to be, but there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with those, right? And of course, the blind hacker. So blind hacker, I came up, a lot of people know me as Joe, Joe B. There's just plenty of Joes in the industry, but so I came up with the moniker blind hacker because I am visually impaired, legally blind. I got my cool little logo here using kind of the cyber security kind of mantra behind it with a, with the symbol for the international symbol for visually impaired. So that really, to me, became it is who I am. It's my personality, but the moniker's there to let people know, well, what else do I do? People reach out to me. Oh, do you do these things? Well, again, I'm a mentor, teacher, I'm a coach. I take on everybody who comes to my Discord, anybody who messages me on Twitter. I try to help out as best I can, but within reasonable means, right? And still, of course, do plenty of community outreach there, and that even comes down to the thing where I've always said, I've always been told, act in the world, act like you are changing the world for the world that you want to live in, and that's what I try to do with a lot of this, the Blind Hacker, because it's a more suitable name than Joe B on Twitter. So where I do it. So again, this is a new slide here. If you saw my prior talks. So Dead Pixel, what is Dead Pixel? Dead Pixel is an online security community I originally started off just as the streamer. The Discord was all about Blind Hacker, but within a few months, I started in August. By March, I realized it's no longer about me. So created this community, Dead Pixel Sec. It's been fantastic. It grows all the time. The doors are open. Everybody's welcome to come in and join. We do have the standard community rule, don't be a dick. So, you can join using the link right, the discord.deadpixelsec.com. So that's where I spend a lot of my time. It's pretty much home. Again, so I also do the Grumpy Hackers podcast, which is a Wednesday night syndicated podcast at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. You can catch that on twitch.tv/Grumpy Hackers. Did I spell it right? Yep, Grumpy Hackers. That looks good. Also, long-standing member with Nova Hackers. So that's the Northern Virginia Hacker Association. Just monthly meetings with that. And then, of course, social media. I'm on Twitter. I have an Instagram. I don't really know how to use it yet. There is a Facebook page, which is hardly used, but you can catch me all on there. They all kind of, at least the Facebook and the Twitter, the Facebook just retweets it. So that's where I do it. So again, join Dead Pixel Sec. You'll have access to me, the community, and we're always willing to teach and learn. It's kind of our motto. All right, so what I have. This is where we get into the hacking while blind. So I have Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, or LHON for short. What does that mean? So it's, long story short, mitochondria degenerative disease for my retinal ganglia cells. So the axons in the back of your eye. So if you remember your cones and that controls color, the axons and everything else behind that, mine are deteriorated to the point that in a sense, the nerve itself, the mitochondria of the cell, does not produce, it's a powerhouse cell, right? If we remember that from biology, it does not produce enough energy to have me precisely focus, which is why I got to make things bigger, because the center of my vision is blurry. So there are multiple different types. I have mine on the 14484 genome. So if you are any bit curious about biohacking, mitochondria, things like that, again, this is the things to look for. You can look it up. There's no cure. Genetic mutification. It's a genetic mutation, so the only way to fix it would be through genetic modification. Or there's some things, there's drops where they boost the mitochondria, it gets in through the cell and kind of helps it produce a little bit more energy. But it's a short-term, temporary kind of solution and not really considered a cure. And it doesn't work for extended periods of time because you would have to keep dosing higher and higher. But anyway, fun stuff there. But again, I was diagnosed shortly after turning the age of 16. Probably the best age you could be diagnosed at, honestly. I see people get diagnosed a little younger, and that they're fine there too. But as you get older, if you get used to driving, doing those things, it's tougher. But so I've never really driven a day in my life, but life goes on. So again, how I do my job, right? So I told you, as a hacker, as a pen tester, I'm a red teamer. So I use accessibility technology, mostly magnification, since I do have the bulk of my vision here. So that means a lot of magnification, sometimes screen readers, but I use it to help show people the level of accessibility at times, including on the streams that I do on Twitch. So again, I do my work the same way you do it. So here's the cool thing. I have a little demo, since they gave me an hour. I have a little demo to show you guys some of the stuff towards the end there. So I'll show a little bit of enumeration. I'm not going to do any exploitation or, but I will do some blindly analyze things, but we won't do any exploitation or anything like that. If you want that, come to the stream, we'll talk about it. But of course, again, enumerate, analyze, exploit, and then grab my foot home and then take home the bacon, as it were. So how I do it. So I love CLI tools, right? Just being a hacker, being a general nerd, we prefer them anyway. But being visually impaired, I definitely prefer CLI tools more anyway, especially when they have an output. I'm fine with some GUI tools that actually are through browsers using HTML5. So again, things like Nessus are fine, but a lot of my work in Metasploit. So the cool thing is I've learned throughout the years how to grab Nessus results, import them into Metasploit CLI, and then I can output the database. I don't have such a complex example of that today, but we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So CLI tools are okay, but they're still tough to use. Things that are even worse to use, and I hate picking on my pals over at Bloodhound, but when they set up the Neo4j and using JavaScript, Node, and Java and all that, it is tough to see because it's GUI. There's no alt text. There's no way the screen reader can grab it and read it. So again, pretty tough to use. Other tools that are terrible to use, Maltego, these CLI GUI-based tools. Yeah, I know being visually, being probably less than the percentage of this community, but it's the more I've been the more I've advocated for this, I find out more and more of the community is worried about sight loss as they get older, color loss, macular degeneration. Oh, well, I guess I won't be a hacker after I get my macular, my MD in place. And you're like, well, why not? I got LHON, which is kind of the opposite of that. Macular degeneration is from the outside in, mine's from the inside out. I don't see why you can't hack anymore. I literally do it every day for the last 15 years as a job. So, things like that. But yeah, those tools on the bottom, harder to use. Tools at the top, easier to use. A lot of people get a little spaced out when we start talking about some of the tools that they'll have to use. Right? Oh, that just sounds hard or difficult. Well, it is. And again, I'll show you more during the example here in a little bit, how to fix things, how to tune things, things like that. So this slide here means a lot to me, again, being a advocate for accessibility, how to approach people with a visual disability. Again, we're very slowly and cautiously, because most of us are like rabid animals. Of course, that's sarcasm. We're humans too. You don't have to make some noise, tap your foot as you're walking up to someone with a disability so they know where you're at. They can hear you, trust me. Maybe not all the time if they have headphones in. Circumstances permitting, most of the time they can hear you approaching. If there's, but if this is a situation where you're working with them, studying with them, just approach them like a human being. Introduce yourself. No, they probably won't remember your voice the first few times unless you have a very unique or distinct voice. Sorry. It's just like people with faces. You can remember a face. You see people at cons. You go, yeah, I hear people at cons, and I go, oh, that's this person because they have a very unique voice. Other times, I think I recognize that. Let me investigate further. Things like that. But just approach people just like you would normally. And if you ever see them needing help or anything, just ask if they need help or even want help first. Don't assume that they're lost or don't know what they're doing. But, again, treating them like a normal human being, really. Let's see. As each person is different, so are people's visually impaired, and so are people's visual impairments, but also the visually impaired person's comfort levels. Is this a new place for them? Example: I was coming to Indianapolis originally coming to Indianapolis for the first time to CircleCityCon. So I'm Googling routes, I'm Googling things nearby, I'm looking at the map, I'm listening to the instructions on how to get around, things like that. So I have the ability to travel because I've traveled a lot for my job. So I understand that. Now, if this is a person who is traveling for the first time, going to university, going to learn, coming to a conference, they may not get that, right? And, while remaining very much independent as a visually impaired person, sometimes they do require help. So again, you approach, you ask, you inquire, you make sure that those things make sense to them. And again, recognize frustration versus misunderstanding. I know I skipped one, align with their personality style. So you can align with personas and style, hey, if you see them doing these things, if you're into Peruvian food, they're into food, just hang out with them. Again, we're just normal people. But again, so back to recognize frustration versus misunderstanding. That's something I run into a lot. When I get frustrated with sometimes people think I'm misunderstanding. And it might just be a frustration with the technology or the tool. Listening to this tool or using my phone to listen to a text message, and you're using a lot of short speak, and the phone doesn't know how to translate it, and I misunderstand something. Is different than understanding it, or like being like, what if I in a conversation, if I reply what, maybe look at what you said, especially if you tried to make it clear, maybe you're using too many acronyms. But I know how to advocate for it a little better, so just do things like that. And as an example of that, sometimes when I'm out in public, people just like, hey blind, or hey Joe, and if you're across the room from me and you just say hey, and you expect me to, because I do seem very sighted, very normal at times, especially during conversations. People forget half the time I'm visually impaired. They go to show me something on their phone, like I'm gonna need to zoom in or manipulate it, or if it's big enough then I can see it. But if you see me looking, if you call me or someone with a visual impairment, keep giving them indicators of where you are. Big waves, double-handed waves, or just come and get me, or come get the visually impaired person. So that's huge things that really will help bring them and include them into more things, instead of just calling them or not calling them. If they're in the community, and they want to be part of it, and them, bring them over and be inclusive, right? Let's see. This is a big thing. I've been asked, how do I learn with someone with like low vision or blind disability? Because I've had my friends go like, I want to study with you, but how do we do it? Again, just like a normal human being. I mean, my brain works as well. I just don't see as well, right? So, it's one of those things that when I get to the point that I'm trying to learn with people and dig into those benefits of how to learn with people. But being a teacher, I've learned I can teach people to learn with me. So if it's a new concept for both of us, and when it gets to the point that maybe, again, I have that frustration versus misunderstanding, or I don't know what's going on, I ask. I've talked about this on several of the podcasts I've been on, Grumpy Hackers. Like, sometimes I just don't understand things, specifically when it comes to web stuff, because sometimes I don't see the impact, right? Like a cross-site scripting pops something up. Well, if I don't see the thing and I'm like, it's not working, that's different than misunderstanding. So being able to understand those concepts and explain them to people who might be new to the industry is something I've tried to explain to them, and I've had reasonable level of success. But when you're learning with somebody for the first time who might have one of these, a visual issue, explain to them, well, okay, so you've got close your eyes, imagine a square, put, we know what a square is, put the text in there, it reads it from left to right, we understand that concept. Go, all right, now there's a box that pops up. Being able to say, and they go, oh, okay, I see, there's a box. So some people, even when they're blind, are visual, some people are not. You're explaining the concept wholeheartedly to the point where, okay, now imagine more code says this. You might have to get to that level. But, again, so when they get frustrated, you still want to encourage them. You still want to encourage them the same way you do everybody else. Don't over encourage someone just because they're visually impaired. We can still detect sarcasm. Teach with the right examples. Again, it's hard to sometimes teach somebody with imagery. Now, if you can explain to them, again, in a way that they understand, great. But that's working with someone who's visually impaired, and kind of going hand in hand with them as you go through this to show them this is the, oh, so you're vivid, you are. So there's no terms for it, unfortunately. But if you say someone is vivid, meaning they can see the imagery, they can do those things, great. But if they can't, you can see, try to help them, ask them how they might imagine it looks, and then see if you can use their imagery to explain it to them, right? It's pretty good method there. One of the things that I've also had to deal with in my life is when, oh, well, you didn't ask for more time. I was having trouble doing something on an exam in high school, or some of my post-teaching, post-education, and I didn't ask for more time. Well, now I gotta remember, hey, if this is a 4-hour exam, and it's a lot of reading, I might have to ask for more time. I'm going to ask the teacher, but I'm going to come to you again. Me, I'm experienced. I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to need 6 hours, or I'm going to need a little bit extra time. And most of the time they'll work with you. They're like, all right, I get it. But again, anybody with a learning disability who advocates for themselves, they've run into those things too. But when learning or teaching someone, provide that extra time if possible. And as always, I love to kind of circle back to the message of things. I've done that several times now, just to reinforce things. But recapping things to kind of go over it, just to make sure that everybody helps. By the way, this helps for everybody, but just again, going over it with the imagery or the vividness that the visually impaired person can understand is an important thing. Just to make sure they understand the concept, have them explain it to you. See if you can close your eyes or leave them open, whatever, and see if you can get that feeling and make sure that it feels right. Make sure that their imagery in their head or their vividness in their head matches the actual way that it works in a visual world. And then, of course, and if one of the best things you could do is if you're doing a study session or note taking or trading notes or studying, share your notes with them. The way people take notes is very differently depending on how things work. But that's as an individual thing. But maybe you guys have similar enough, learning methodologies that they'll help out. And I'm not saying give them your notes like, oh, they didn't come to class, give them your notes. No, if they're like, oh, my notes are kind of, because we're going to spend more time typing than being able to, visually intake things. So we're going to all right, so it's going to probably be this. So just if you can, and it helps them. And of course, they're your student peer, things like that, work with them. And of course, as always, be inclusive. In this case, be inclusive, it's hard to explain this. So the world is definitely not designed to include the blind or low vision. A lot of people go, what do you mean? We've got these sidewalks that beep and you can cross. Have you ever actually tried to sit there, close your eyes at a very busy intersection, go to a major city, close your eyes, and then tell which sign is beeping? Is that across the street? Is that next to me? Is that here? Is it going this way or is it going that way? It can be extraordinarily difficult, even for the visually impaired who, have trained themselves to go, listen for things. Is it back and front? Whole references. So when I say be inclusive and the world is not designed, also places like Amazon, I throw the biggest retailer under the bus. Go to Amazon and go look at clothing. Type in green sweater as an example. Scroll through, keep scrolling until you go, oh, well, that sweater's not green anymore. Yet the description says it's green. Things like that. It's hard to go shopping. It's hard to find food. Do I go to Amazon and if I type in chicken soup, well, I really like Campbell's, unless it specifically says Campbell's chicken soup. Oh, nope, you bought the wrong chicken soup. It's this. Well, chicken soup is chicken soup. Don't at me on Twitter. But ultimately, just try to find ways to, again, be inclusive, to bring them in, and again, just find them, bring them into your friends. Because remember, the world is not entirely meant for us. And of course, to the blind, low vision, visually impaired folks, ask for what you need. I see that a lot. I see that a lot. Sorry, I'm getting messages. I see that a lot. Visually impaired folks go, I need X, but they ask for it. I really like this. And no, you got to be vocal. You have to advocate for yourself. I learned it because when I was 16, people thought I was making it up. Rapid vision loss, that doesn't happen. And you're right, it is very rare. I lost it almost overnight in a period of from a few days after my 16th birthday. So essentially it started probably the third day after my birthday. I was almost entirely blind by the 6th day. 3 days, my vision dropped so rapidly. I went from being able to read the exam I was taking, because it was near midterms in high school. So I went from being able to take a pop quiz. It was something. I remember just trying to read it and going, you know, I'm focusing and things are changing. And we had no clue my family was affected by this. That I would be affected by this, period, much less my, you know, now going through the years, but some of my additional family members. No clue. I was the first one. It dropped so rapidly and I didn't know what to do. So you have to advocate for yourself. And I learned because my teachers do care, but some of them, I was a problem student. I won't deny that. So I went from problem student to problematic student. I all of a sudden now I have to have things blown up or read to me. And they're like, oh, you're faking it. You're trying to get more time because you're just lazy. And well, no, that wasn't the case. But again, you have to advocate for your needs. I had to learn how to do it very quickly because I knew being a problematic student, people weren't going to help me out. Anyway, so workloads, ways to help. I got this Golgothis, I believe is how you say his name, Zach. He's another streamer, another InfoSec Twitter person, all over the place. I posted something on Twitter about having issues with a large online security vendor, education vendor, their paperwork. Some of their courses came down in HTML and PDF, and that's great. Sometimes PDFs are fine, but when I go to translate them using the OCR, so it reads it out to me or reorganizes it so I get better font than what people save their PDFs in, because they want to save that extra megabyte so they compress it a little bit, and it gets blurry, and blurry things aren't great for the visually impaired. So when I go through that, I was like, I just kept having problems, and it was trying to read things, and I was trying to understand what was going on. So I'm zooming in. Finally, I get the concept, but I wanted to post about it. And then I was asked, oh, by the way, when I write a blog, how do I help? Or when I write a program, how do I help? And I was like, that's a great question. First thing you can do is keep asking that question. Asking that question, the first thing, is a great way to help. I should probably put that as bullet point number one. But what I tell my my developer friends, my hacker friends, and creators of scripts, programs, if you make them, document your work. The first thing you do is document your work. Leaving comments in there where I can change things, where I can modify things. If there's output, how do I do output? Read a help file, a man file. Document your work. That doesn't happen often. Sometimes I go beat on somebody's door and then they go, oh, you're right, let me document a little bit more. And like, I meant to do that. And we're like, can you? And people do it. And it's fortunate, again, because I'm loud. I got, you know, people follow me on Twitter, you know, whatever case may be, and people go, oh, you know what, let me do that for you. And I'm like, you're not doing it for me, you're doing it for the community at large, because some people just like to read things or listen to things, whatever case may be. So document your work. Comments, documentation, whatever you can do. I don't, you know, learn, if you have trouble with it, come to me, we can work on it together. I've read so many courses and read so many things and written so many things that I will help you document your work in a way that is the way to explain it. Moving on. Keep it simple as well. When doing formatting, when doing things, InMap was the craziest thing for me to learn when I was a teenager, because the only place to do it was on their website, and it was like every other page. I was like reading a Wikipedia article every time. What does -O do? Boom. Where do I put a -O? And you know, eventually you figure it out. You do it anywhere. But there's these nuances. So that's why do the quick sheets, show people how to run it, keep it simple, go from there, right? Use simple verbiage as well. Don't spell out really kind of big words. Just use standard verbiage. Recon, tool it, did it, steps, go over. Allow for output to be greppable, searchable, or any friendly file formats. If you use XML and data trees for parsing, awesome. Write a parser or document how to write a parser. Tell me what your data trees look like. There's just checking my time. Make a parser. If you don't know how to make a parser, it's fine. Work with somebody who does. Come to me. I'm not great at it. I can help. I don't use everybody's tools because of those kinds of things. That if I can't get grepl, if I can't get XML, you don't have a parser, I can't use your tool. By the way, I advocate for more visually impaired and blind people to get into our industry because we can work from home We can work remote, and people will work around our schedules because of the things we do. Well, as more people join the industry, or as us folks get older, gray beards now, oh man, I gotta blow up my screen and do this, and everybody comes to me now, oh, I can barely see my screen. I'm like, get a 4K screen, put it on 120%. If you gotta zoom in, do these things, get high DPI, explaining all that stuff. But bottom line, I still would like to see parsers in a way that organizes the data neatly in a comma separated value, CSV. Again, not hard, and it's not your job always to do it, but if you can at least put it out there to be done, let's do it. Let's work together. Too much data has never been a problem, except for, and this is where we'll go over the example, unless it's screeching across your screen. Well, again, I have time for a tech demo. I will show it to you guys. It can be burdensome. And it can be very, it's always a pain when you miss things. So try to tag valuable data in your tool. And what I mean by that is, Nmap fortunately says vulnerable. So if I go, is SMB vulnerable? Okay. Grab through the document for the words SMB vulnerable, try to put characters together, use cut documents. I don't have all the scripts to do all that published. I've got things that I do. But if you can try to put together, so again, it can be parsable and read to find the important things or highlight the important things. And by highlighting, I don't just mean with colors visually. Try to make some kind of non-visually friendly, like important tag, low tag, something, four exclamation points in a row. Tell me somewhere, document it, and I'll find it and use it. Critical thinking is best when it comes to accessibility. What does that mean? Sit down and think. Can somebody see this? Can somebody do this? What does it look like? How is it going to just be? If you're trying to be inclusive and you're trying to be an ally for the accessibility, that's what you're going to have to do. A little bit of critical thinking. Be inclusive, be descriptive, and keep it simple. That's the wrap up for this slide. All right, so to develop to be inclusive, kind of goes back to what we we're just talking about there. But if you're going to develop tools or training material or anything, if you're a creator and you're developing things about inclusive, think. If someone is always zoomed in, might they miss flashing things off? I'm going to put an alert in the upper right corner so it doesn't disturb anybody. You know how often I go to the upper right corner? When I go to close apps. So try to think, if somebody zoomed in things, use audible tones. Oh, try to use different audible tones. Ding, 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 50 dings. I'm eventually, like Discord noises, I tune them out. Whoop, 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 all day, because I wear headphones all day because I'm listening for things. Eventually I'd start, I'm chatting with everybody, having a good time, and then some, squirrel, I get distracted. Ding, 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 ding. I'm not paying attention. But now if somebody direct messages me, I would love to, now I'm just having a little fun, but things like that. Think if someone's looking at this all day, what are ways I can help? I actually was at a operations center early on in my career and found out for different alerts, we could also play a tone. So on my box, guess what? Every tone or every alert had a different tone. I went online, I found a soundboard. Geez, when things started happening on my system at the operations center, you knew. And it's funny because the other guys knew, and that was kind of the point. Oh, ding, ding. Oh, all right. And info came up. No worry about it. Weren't. Whoa. Okay, let me look into that too. Oh, that's critical. Oh, okay. Those things like that. Again, output to logs, text files, always great. Even if you don't write outputs and allow for greppable and you don't have time for that, if you just some kind of log somewhere or output to the screen or put data in Linux and Windows, you can always find a way to pipe it into an output. When blogging, this was the question that we got into. When blogging, try to use Markdown. I love Markdown. I use Markdown myself. I take notes now in Markdown. I hate reading raw Markdown. I love the display of it because the way Microsoft Reader and other tools read it, Natural Reader for browsers, just to hit read on a page and then go do something else while I listen to a big Medium blog post, things like that. It kind of pronounces things sometimes differently when bold, italicized, so again, use Markdown. It's very helpful. Medium is a great platform. Even though it's not Markdown, it reads those things fine. So WordPress, 50-50. There's a lot of accessibility plugins now. You can use them. Make sure they stay up to date, things like that. If you have a GUI, if you write a GUI, awesome. Include a CLI, please. Let's see. One of the things that I've seen recently is this trend of like leaky ASCII text or spray art ASCII text. Really cool, except for when your screen reader is attempting to read from left to right and it reads each one of those characters. So like Twitter is insane. The emojis, like some of those people use like emojis to point at stuff and there's a bunch of hands and there's a word in the middle. If I'm using a screen reader on my phone just to keep reading through Twitter as the things pop up, I have to disable it because it reads each one. By the way, for all the alt text, if you're using, you know, hand pointing down, hand pointing left, hand pointing down, hand pointing, you know, it'll read out each one of those. So just keep that in mind when building tools. Try to cut some of that out. So again, my workflows with tools that do drop lots of data, things like nmap options, IP output file, or just pipe it output, you know, pipe the grep the bash output to a nmap.log. Then I can grep through it later. You know, I control Z, BG, FG, background things, foregrounds, no hop. So it's no interaction. Once it's completed, I can access my output. Again, in my usage of tools, use a lot of SSH PowerShell CLIs, Bash. I forgot Bash, things like that. So cool thing like using Terminator and Kali, I can alt to different windows and it just reads just those windows. So as I complete things, you can alt around, you can tab around. In Windows, again, PowerShell CLI or outputs. You know, and it's kind of a classic example I want to kind of talk about here is a forensics tool. I got asked recently, a student who was totally blind, was taking a forensics course at a university, and the teacher wouldn't modify the lesson. First of all, don't get me started on that. If you can't modify your lesson because you're not used to other tools, you're probably not as good at the industry as you think you are. But if your coursework in your class, you can modify it for this student or help out. If you can modify it for the student, help out, that's great. So, but make sure that your output and that you can teach with any number of tools. Let's see. No questions or anything since we're online, unless somebody wants to read off questions, or I can go pick them up. I'll do it afterwards. I just left it in there. But here's where you can you can get a hold of me. But since now I have, we'll call it, I'll give myself a few more minutes of time. So what I wanted to show you guys, and I got all this pre-set up as best I could. So I'm going to show you guys what it's like to listen to Nmap on very, very verbose with a screen reader losing its bananas. So I'm going to pull up PowerShell. I am going to run nmap-vv, so very verbose, not very, very verbose. So just be happy about that. -ss, smallest big S, so SimScan, -sv, so we're going to attempt to find version, -a, so it pulls it. I know it's kind of being redundant, but I like it's for me. -a, so I'm going to pull out, I want to see outputs for the operating systems, run some of the simple scripts, to see if things are vulnerable. I'm going to do it on a T4, so it's a little bit aggressive. You can tune that a little bit less aggressive to the paranoid. I'm going to do scanme.nmap.org, and I'm going to do -OA scanme, so it's going to output there. So let me turn on the screen reader, and bear with me. Apologies. First of all, hopefully everybody can hear it. If my operator, my speaker help can make sure that it's coming through.
Starting narrator, meeting controls window.
So narrator's on. Let's click PowerShell.
Windows PowerShell window, text area, editing, blank. P selected. E. N.
All right,
Space.
good luck.
Starting map 7.80, https://nmap.org, at June 12th, completed NSE at 14:45, 0.00 s elapsed, initiating ping scan at 14:45, scanning scanme.nmap.org, 45.33.32.156, 4 ports, completed ping scan at 14:45, 1.45 s elapsed, 1 total hosts, initiating parallel DNS resolution of 1 host. At 14:45, discovered open port 9929/TCP on 45.33.32.156, completed service scan at 14:45, 6.16 s elapsed, 4 services on 1 host, initiating OS detection, try number 1, against scanme.nmap.org, 45.33.32.156, completed trace route at 14:45, 3.03 s elapsed. Completed trace route at 14:45, 3.03 s elapsed, initiating parallel DNS resolution of 9 hosts. At 14:45, initiating NSE at 14:46, completed parallel DNS resolution of 9 hosts. At 14:46, 7.78 s elapsed, NSE, script scanning 45.33.32.156. NSE, starting run level 1, of 3, scan. Initiating NSE at 14:46, initiating NSE at 14:46, completed NSE at 14:46, 5.21 s elapsed, NSE, starting run level 2, of 3, scan. Initiating NSE at 14:46, completed NSE at 14:46, 0.33 s elapsed, NSE, starting run level 3, of 3, narrator settings window, to navigate the options in this dialog space. Exiting narrator.
So, if you just heard all that and it made sense to you, if it came through, I'm hoping it came through. I did. I believe I shared my desktop audio. It's checked. All right. So you guys should have heard that. So you didn't even hear the SSL certificate it picked up from the HTTP on port 80. I don't even know if you heard it read out port 80. I don't know if you heard it read out port 25. I believe there was something else in the 9,000s, 31,000. And so you didn't even get the service value. So now imagine listening to that for the very first time. You're visually impaired. Your teacher's like, oh, just nmap this IP address, and then you hear this. So let's do the same thing with just I had to turn screen reader off. But so again, I'm trying to show you guys, like, so by the way, nmap already completed scanning, but the screen reader was still just going line by line by line by line. Now you add tools that add ASCII art and things like that, and they do things like that, and you go, oh my God, how can you even listen to that? And unfortunately, I have to. I don't have to, but I do. And I've gotten used to it. So grepping for things, so outputting that to a file and being able to, I didn't specifically do that because I was using Windows. But if I output that to a file and I go, grep, 80, enter, and then it's literally gonna read off anything with the port 80 on there. So port 80, let's see, it will read this section, so it'll be a 80 TCP. Got a little spittle. Slow down. So it'll be 80 TCP, open, HTTP, SYNAC, TTL, 55, Apache, HTTPD 2.4.7. I can't read it as fast as it is. Ubuntu. Then it'll get into HTTP, favIco, unknown favIco, so on. Then it'll actually read, by the way, the MD5 sum of the favIco, 155. So again, if you're gonna, nothing wrong with nmap. I enjoy it. I appreciate everything it does. I get it. But again, imagine being brand new and hearing that for the first time. There's no way, right? You're gonna give up. You're gonna go do anything but that. And then keep in mind, it keeps reading HTTP favIco, HTTP methods available, since we did all services, HTTP server header, things like that. So I left myself in a channel. So it's going to read all that stuff out, guys. So like I said, if you can build your tools to help with that, that's appreciative. I kind of finished up my talk a little bit earlier than I thought. Started a little bit late, but so usually, again, I give myself 10 minutes for questions. I guess I can head to Discord and peek out Discord if I see any questions there. I look like I have a ton, or I've been tagged in a ton of things. Dead pics on the house. Yeah. I could only imagine rewiring the way you think as a programmer after the loss of your site. I tell you what, I was getting into computers. I was, again, I'm 16. I'm a nerd. That's when we all kind of got really curious. I was doing bad stuff. I was doing good stuff. I was on hacker.de. The specific reason I took German through high school, I was trying to learn all this stuff. I took programming. I took programming for 4 years throughout high school. These are the things that I knew I wanted to do. Computers, and I knew these things. I wanted to do these things. So a lot of it is you do have to rewire your brain. I see some holy cows in there. Yeah, I understood everything it said. My brain has to have been rewired. I can listen to things on anywhere from 1.25, 1.5. Some people talk really fast, like I was doing a few moments ago. I could not listen to myself on 2x when I'm talking really fast. It's just no words. Well, that answered my question. What question did you have? But ultimately, like that's the way these things work, and that's the way someone who's entirely blind sees the world. And I hope you guys got something out of this. And if you got any questions, again, I'm on Twitter at The Blind Hacker. I'm on Twitch. I stream my streams. I don't let the text out if I am using it sometimes. Sometimes I do, just to show you guys. But I hope you guys got something from this. And again, I'm not just a accessibility ally, but I want you guys to take away from this what you can. And as you get older, as things change, reach out to me. Hopefully one day I won't be the only person everybody's reaching out to. I appreciate it, guys. Do you tend to write your own bash scripts to grep outputs? I have in the past. I have not published any of them. This slide deck will be Blind Hacker Slide Deck 2.0, which will be on my GitHub, which you can find me with The Blind Hacker. Will also be on blindhacker.com/slides. I believe it's slides. I kind of forget my own website sometimes, but I don't use it that often. But yeah, that'll be on there. Great talk, thanks. Presenter, I guess we can fade out a little early if you guys want to queue up the green room for the next presenter.